Morning, senior ones. My name is Sekabira Moses. I have two questions for you before we start our topic for today. Question number one. If you have a goat at home and your parent asks you to take it for grazing, what do you do in order to take it to graze? Question number two. If your father and you are traveling in the car and fuel gets over and the car suddenly stops in the middle of the road, which advice can you give to your parent? Somebody has given us that for the goat, for him just to get a stick and he chase it to go where it is to be grazed, which is a very good answer. Then another one has told us that for him just to get a rope, tie it in the neck and he pulls it, which is a very good answer. Then there is somebody who has added on, who has told us that gets a rope, tie it in the neck, and he applies the force in order to pull the goat up to where it is to be grazed. Then I have received here some answers for the car. One has said that the advice to the parent is to get a border man, then is driven up to the shell, buys and then take it, which is very okay, you can do. But remember, it is in the middle of the road, the other vehicles have to continue moving. Then another answer which we have got is that as another one has given the advice that for him advises the parent to call some people and push the car to the side of the road such that others continue moving. That is marvelous. It is wonderful. Now that one leads us to another question. What do you use for the car, for the goat? Somebody says that you tie a rope in the neck, then you pull it by applying, but said by applying force. Then this one has said that the parent is given the advice to call other people to help him to push the car to the side of the road such that others can continue moving, which is very okay. Now we have seen that in the two occasions, pulling a goat, somebody has said that there is a pulling. There is a pulling the goat. Then in the car, there is a pushing the car. When you push the car, it will start moving. When you pull the goat, it will start moving. But when we push and we pull, we apply what? We apply what is called the force. Now from there, we want to know what is meant by the word force. Where does it come from? It has come from, there is pulling and pushing. But when you pull, something can start moving. Or it sometimes stops what? Moving. So from there, these two words, pushing and pulling, are very important when we are explaining what is meant by the word force. Therefore, what is force? There is one who can tell us that force is the push or the pull. The push or pull. The push or pull. That is the response which I have gotten from most of you. Push or pull. But when I push something, when I get this object and I push it, when you push it, is there movement? So the pull and push, there must be movement. Therefore, now what is meant by force? One can say that force, what is meant by the word force. What is meant by the word force? Now that is the major issue or our major topic. Force. Force is the pull. You have given that there is the pulling, there is the pushing. From there we can develop what is meant by force. Force is the push. Force is the push or pull. Is the push or pull. But we cannot end here. This is a very good answer, but at least we can modify it. It is the push or pull. That changes the body's state of rest or uniform motion in a straight line. If you are driving a vehicle, you are moving in a straight line. But when you find a corner, you apply the force onto the steering wheel such that it changes the direction. It means that it has changed the body state of moving in a straight line. If an object, for example, this duster, here it is at rest. When force is applied, it starts moving. It has changed the body state of rest. This piece of chalk is at rest, but when I throw it upward, it starts moving. That is force. Before I apply force on it to start moving, it is at rest. When I apply force, it starts moving upwards. Therefore, force is the push or pull that changes the body's state of rest or of uniform motion in a straight line. If you are there at home, you put a book on your table, then there, without applying any forces at rest, but when you touch it and start pulling it, it starts moving. By what has caused it to move is the force. Force is the push or pull that changes. It must change the body's state of rest or of uniform motion in a straight line. So that one can be used to explain what is meant by force. Force is the push or pull that changes the body's state of rest or of uniform motion. Next, we can have a question that what happens? What happens? Let us discuss. What happens? What happens when a force is applied on an object? What do you expect to happen? What happens? What happens when a force, when force is applied on an object on an object. What happens when force is applied on an object? Now we have this piece of chalk. The piece of chalk, or we have a duster. A duster, it is at rest. But when I release it, it starts moving vertically downwards. When get your book, place it on the table, then apply force on it. What happens to it? Then we have, this is a bottle. When I apply force on it, what happens to it? What happens to it? That is the effect of force, or what happens when force is applied. Then we have, this is a spring. Before I apply the spring, you see its shape. But when I apply force on it, what happens to this spring? What happens? What are you observing? I have the duster here. When I apply upward force, what happens to it? I apply force. So we are looking at what happens when force is applied on an object. Let us start with this one. You see the shape. What happens? What are you saying? So somebody is telling us that what happens to an object? This is an example of an object that when I apply force, before I apply, you saw the shape. But now the shape has changed. Now like this bottle, wherever force is applied, there is a change in the shape. A change in shape. Change in shape and the size, wherever force is exerted on an object, it can change shape. If you are a boxer and somebody gives you a punch, you can swell. That is a change in shape. When you look into the mirror, you see that your shape has what? Has changed. Then we are seeing the spring. This is the size. But when you apply force, the size changes. That is what happens when force is applied on an object. Another one, I say that place the book on the desk. Then you use your hand to exert force on it. What happens to that book? It at first it is at rest, but when you apply force on it, it starts moving. Now there is the object starts moving when starts moving from rest, rest, R-E-S-T, from rest. Another one, if you are moving in a vehicle, and you observe humps in front of you, you cannot continue moving with the same speed. What do you do? What do you do is to apply the brakes. When you apply the brakes, what do you observe? What do you observe? Good. One has said that the speed reduces, which is very correct. If the vehicle is an object, when you apply brakes, remember there is a friction force. So it causes it to reduce the the speed. Therefore, if it is in motion, if it is in motion, force reduces or increases the speed. Now here there are two in one. Reduces or increases the speed. Reducing the speed, that is when you apply the brakes. The vehicle can reduce the speed. Then to increase the speed, there is an engine. When you change the gears, the engine exerts a forward force that causes the speed to increase. That causes the speed to increase. So these are some of the effects of force. What happens to the object when force is applied on it? What happens when force is applied on an object? What happens when force is applied on an object? Now what happens? Those are the effects of force wherever it is exerted on an object. One of it we have said there is a change in shape, which is very good. The object, if it is at rest, it may start moving. Another one, if the object is moving, its speed can reduce or increase. Then another one, the force can cause object to stop. Okay. It can make the object to stop. There is stopping. There is a difference between reducing and stopping. Yes, reducing, it can reduce but continue moving. It can reduce and it does what? It stops. So these are some of the outcome or what can happen to an object when force is applied on it. Change in shape, like this one. Change in size. This one is short, but when you apply force, increases in size. This one is at rest. When I apply the upward force, it starts moving. Then it may be moving. Then it comes to what? To rest. Or it can be moving with a very high speed. Then the speed reduces. It can be moving. It starts with low speed and increases the speed. So those are some of the outcome or what happens. Or effects. Those are the outcomes of what? Of force wherever it is applied on any object. I have said we have this question: what happens when force is applied on any object? It is the same as the effects of force. Now, during your free time, you will add on other points, and you will send your answers which you have added here, and we shall comment about those points which you have added. Those are the effects of force. Effects of force is the same as what happens to an object when force is applied on it. Now, having looked at the effects or what happens to an object when force is applied on it, I want you to answer this question. Your question. What are the applications of force? Is force important to you? Is force important to you? Where do you apply force? Now, from the effects we have mentioned, like a change in shape, increasing the speed, reducing the speed, from there we can get some of the uses of force. Maybe I can illustrate one example. You are saying this piece of chalk. Now what am I doing? I'm applying force. But the piece, instead of having one piece, now I have two pieces. So I have broken the piece of chalk into two pieces. Meaning that if you want to break something, you can't break something without using what? Force. Applications are the same as uses. So I want you to identify some other uses of force apart from the one which I have given you. That breaking. From our effects, you can generate the uses of force. Where, even at your home, where do you use the force? Where do you use the force? So questions number one. What are the effects of force? That is question one. What are the effects of force? Question number two. Mention some applications of force at your home. Where do you live? At your home. Is the force important at your home? Therefore, mention occasions where you need what? You need the force. Those are the questions. So we can go to another thing. That is, we have defined the force. We have mentioned the effects of force. Now, in physics, we have what we call SI unit. SI unit. Now, what name is given to this instrument? What name is given to this instrument you are saying? Now, the instrument you are saying, it is called that instrument. Which name is given to this instrument? This instrument is called a springy balance. That is great. It's called a spring what? A spring balance. If you view it very clearly, the spring balance has two scales. But on one of its side, there is letter N, and another side there is letter G. Now that letter N, because this spring balance, it is used to measure weight, which is one of the type of force. There is what we call, that N is representing one of the scientist, the name of the scientist. Who can tell us the name of one of the scientists whose name starts with the letter N? Which name of a scientist whose letter starts with the letter N? That one is called Newton. Newton. This is the scientist whose name starts with the letter N. Because that great scientist called Isaac Newton is the one who investigated about forces. Therefore, the SI unit of force comes from that name, Newton. It is capital N. Capital N is representing Newton. Any unit which is from the name of a person, if it has one letter, it is capital N. For example, Newton. The SI unit of force is called the Newton. That is very, very important. So far, we have looked at what is meant by force. Force is the pull or push that changes the body state of rest or of uniform motion in a straight line. Then, effects or outcome, or what happens to any object when force is applied. We have already listed them: changing the shape, increasing the speed, reducing the speed, causing the objects to start moving if they are at rest, and if they are moving to come to rest, changing size and shape. Those are the effects. Then the SI unit. The SI unit is called the Newton. The SI unit of force is capital N. If you are to write the SI unit in full, that is Newton. Please don't write capital letter. You just write a small letter, Newton. Newton. The first letter of Newton. If you are to write a full word, it should be Newton. But if you are to write a symbol, it should be capital what? Capital N. The symbol is capital N, then full of capital N is Newton. But if you are to write that the SI unit is Newton in full, that first letter should be small letter. Now, we can also move forward and we look at types of force. Please, can you mention some of the types of force you know? For example, are you seeing the piece of chalk? What are you observing? What have you observed? The piece of chalk. When I release it, it moves vertically where? Vertically downward. When I jump, when you jump, within your room you jump. When you jump, you come back to the ground. Which type of force is that one? It means that when you jump, there is something which is pulling you back to the ground. When I release the piece of chalk, there is something which pulls it to the ground. There is a force. Now, which type of force is that one? Now, the type of force, somebody has said that it is the gravitational force. We are looking at types of forces. Like they will say, the force is the pull or push that changes the body state of rest. Types of forces. Types of forces. We have said that what happens if you see a bird on the tree and you throw a stone, what did you observe? One says that the bird fly away from the tree. Then another one has given that the stone will move towards the bird and finally comes on the back to the ground. So that type of force which causes that stone to come back to the ground, or this piece of chalk to move vertically downwards, or when I jump, it pulls me back. So that one is what we call gravitational force. Gravitational force. Gravitational force. We are looking at types of forces. We have gravitational what? Force or force of gravity. So that force, what is meant by, who can give us the meaning of gravitational force? Good. One has said that. Gravitational force, that is a force when you jump, it pulls you back to the ground, which is a very good answer. Like when I jump, it pulls me, or another one that it pulls the object to, when an object is released, it is pulled towards the ground. All of those are good answers. However, this is the best answer. It is not pulling you towards the ground. We are on Earth's surface. We are on Earth's what? Surface. Remember, this, the Earth is a sphere, though it is not perfect. For us, we are not found inside the Earth. We are found, this is the surface of the Earth. Now, wherever you throw the piece of what? Chalk upward. The piece of chalk is here. Even me, I'm standing here. Wherever I try to move away from the earth, there is a force which pulls me back, but that force concentrates in the center of the what? Of the earth. So when I jump, I'm here on Earth's surface. When I jump, that force pulls me towards the center of the earth. Towards the center, I'm standing on Earth's surface, but there is a force which pulls me towards the center of the earth. This piece of chalk is on Earth's surface. When you throw it vertically upward, force pulls it back, but it is towards, that force is concentrated in the center of the earth. Therefore, force of gravity is the force that pulls the body towards the center of the earth. Gravitational force is the force that pulls the body or the object towards center of the earth, towards the center of the earth, towards the force that pulls object towards center of the earth is called the gravitational force. All your suggestions or what you gave in were very correct. That when you jump, that force which pulls you back to the ground, which is correct. Because when I jump from the Earth's surface, when I pull the back, I come back to the Earth's surface. But however, that force which pulls you back, it is concentrated at the center of the earth. And that one gives us the correct meaning of the word gravitational force. It's the force that pulls the object towards the center of the earth, towards the center of the earth. Other type of force, one has said the weight. What is weight? What is meant by that term weight? Hey, there is one who has said heaviness. Weight is the heaviness or lightness of an object. Good. How heavy an object is. How light an object is. That is weight. However, heaviness, even mass, the greater the mass, the greater the material is heavy. The lighter, the smaller the mass, the lighter the object. However, weight, one has said weight is the heaviness or lightness of an object. It is a correct idea about what is meant by weight. However, this is the best. when you are standing on the floor in your sitting room, the floor is supporting you freely. If under the floor there is a pit, what happens if your weight is greater? You will just follow. It means that the floor is supporting you. Now, that force which you exert on anything which freely supports you, that is your weight. When you are sitting on the chair, you are sitting on the chair. The chair is supporting you such that you don't fall, but supporting you freely. And now that one is your weight. Therefore, apart from heaviness or lightness, the best explanation of the word weight, or the meaning of the word weight is the force an object exerts on anything that freely supports it. That freely supports it. A weight is the force. Weight is the what? Is the force an object. Even you are an object. When you sit on the chair is freely supporting you. When you stand on the ground is freely supporting you, such that you don't fall. So what you exert on it is your weight. So weight is the force. An object exerts on anything that freely supports it. That freely supports it. This is another one. And one of the best definition of weight. Weight is the force an object exerts on anything that freely supports it. However, when you check on the internet, if you go and do research on internet, you will find another explanation of weight. This is the first explanation. Then we also weight. Weight, if you go and Google, you will find that weight is the force of gravity that acts on an object. Also, weight is the force of gravity which acts on an object. These are two best explanations. You will read more about what is meant by weight. So far, the best explanations are: one, weight can be explained as the force an object exerts on anything that freely supports it. Or weight is the force of gravity which acts on any object. Like when I jump, there is the force of gravity which is acting on what? On me. So that is my weight. So far we have looked at the two types of forces. Another type, we are having a friction. We shall look at some forces in detail, but now we can just look at what is meant by those forces. Then we are having a friction. Friction. We also have frictional force. Frictional force. if I get my hands and what am I doing? I'm rubbing the hands, I'm putting them, I have two surfaces, the surface for this hand and the surface for this one. When I put them in contact and there is more motion, that one we call it relative motion. Now that type of force, it is as if when you are rubbing, there is opposition to the motion, and that opposition to the motion, relative motion between these two surfaces, and the surfaces must be in contact, and there is relative motion. So that type of force is what we call friction. Therefore, friction is the force that opposes relative motion between the two surfaces in contact. Is the force that opposes relative motion between two surfaces, and the surfaces must be in what? Two surfaces in contact. If they are not in contact, between two surfaces in contact, relative motion between two surfaces in contact that opposes. So friction is the force that opposes relative motion between two surfaces in contact. Then if in your room, get a glass, pour in water. After pouring in water into the glass, pour that water away. See what is happening inside the glass. Get the glass, pour water inside, then go outside and pour that water away. After that, see what are you observing inside the glass. You have observed that inside the glass there are some droplets on the walls of the glass. What do you think? Why are those drops on the surfaces of the glass? It means that there is a certain force between the drop and the wall of the glass that keeps the drop of water stick on the walls. So there is a force, and what name is given to that force? It is adhesion. There is adhesion and cohesion. In brief, cohesion, it is the force of attraction between the molecules of the same substance. For example, the molecule of water and water, they attract themselves. That force is what we call cohesion. It is the cohesion. Another one is the adhesion. Cohesion, the force of attraction between the molecules of the same substance, e.g. water molecules. Adhesioning forces, these are forces of attraction between the molecules of different substances. For example, if you have the molecule of water and the molecules of the glass, when they attract each other, they have different substances. So that is what we call adhesion. It's what we call adhesion. We can also have the magnetic force. There is a cohesion. Cohesion is the force of attraction between the molecules of the same substance. Adhesion is the force of attraction between the molecules of different substances. So here we have cohesion and adhesion. Another one, we have what we call magnetic a magnet. We have a magnetic key. Now, when you get a magnet, you can get a razor blade. You put it on top of the table and get a magnet. You try to move it under the table. You will see the razor blade. The razor blade is seen doing what? Moving wherever you move the magnet below the table. Now, that motion, it means that there is a force causing it. And that force is the magnetic what? Force. Now, the force the magnet exerts at a point is what we call the magnetic what? Force. Magnetic force. Magnetic force is the force a magnet exerts at a point. Then there is electrostatic force. Get a plastic cup. Rub it using your hair. After rubbing it, get small pieces of papers, place them, and bring the cup. Immediately after rubbing it, bring it close. What do you observe? What do you observe? Good. The small pieces of papers are attracted by the cup. Now, which type of force is that one? Attracting, meaning that there is a force. So, which type of force is that one? It is electrostatic force. But when you rub the cup in your hair, you are charging it, meaning that you have given it charge. Now, that force a charge exerts at a point is what we call electrostatic force. Electrostatic force. Then we have upthrust. If you get a jerrycan, immerse it in the well. What do you feel when you immerse a jerrycan into the well? Good. You feel the force pushing the jerrycan upward. Good. Now, that force which you feel is what we call upthrust. Because it is pushing the jerrycan upward, so it becomes the upward force. Now, upthrust is the upward force experienced by a body when fully or partly immersed in fluid or in a liquid, like for example water. That one becomes the upthrust. Now, upthrust, we are looking at types of forces: magnetic force, electrostatic force. Upthrust, we have said when you get a jerrycan for upthrust, you immerse it in a well, you feel there is a force which is pushing you upward. Now, that force pushing you upward, because it is upward, that's why we call it upthrust. Therefore, that upward force experienced by a body which is wholly or partly immersed in a liquid or in a fluid is what is called the upthrust. Then there is what we call viscosity. All of these are types of forces. When the fluid means either gas or liquid. Anything which can flow freely is called a fluid. For example, gases, they can flow freely. You imagine if somebody has sprayed the perfume on his or her body, you feel that smell at a distance. It means that the perfume, that is air, is a gas. It is as air can move freely. That one is what we call a fluid. Then water, when you pour water down, you see that water is freely moving without you forcing it to move. So anything which can move freely is called the fluid. Now when the fluid is moving, air is flowing, water is flowing, it is also experiencing the force that opposes its motion. So viscosity, that is the force that opposes motion in flow. In fluid, I say the fluid means either a liquid or a gas, anything that can flow freely. Viscosity is the force that opposes motion in fluid. Finally, we can also talk about another type, which is viscous drag. These ones are almost similar. Viscous drag, D-R-A-G, viscous drag. Viscosity, we have said, it is the force that opposes motion in flow, in fluid. Then the viscous drag, if you are swimming, in a swimming what? Pool, you feel there is a force that opposes your motion, but when you are moving, you as a body, your body is in contact with water. Now that frictional force between a solid object, you are a solid, and water, which is a fluid, that frictional force that opposes that motion between a fluid and solid object, for example, a bus and air, you yourself, when you are swimming, your body and water, that one we call it viscous drag. Viscous drag is the force that opposes motion between a solid object and a fluid. But viscosity, it opposes motion in a fluid itself. Water can be flowing itself, but there is also opposition to its motion. So, our lesson for today, we have summarized what is meant by force, SI unit of force, which is a Newton, effects of forces. Then I gave you an assignment to list some of the applications. Where do you use force at your home? Do you need the force at your home? Then next are the types of forces. So we have summarized the different types of forces, and in our next meeting we shall look at specific types of forces in details, and you can go and do some research on them. We shall elaborate weight and the frictional force. Thank you for being good students. Assalamu alaikum.